Text 28. After inquiring about proper self-knowledge from the son of Vyasadeva, who will be a great philosopher, he will renounce all material attachment and achieve a life of fearlessness.
Thus, those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhisthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes.
Okay, and the plenary verse for today. So, okay. Sa esha loke vikhyata parikshiti yat prabhu purvam tishtam anudyayan parikshita narshe iha sa esha loka vikhyata parikshiti yat prabhu Purvam drishtam anyudyayan priksheta narsheha sa esha lokha vikyata priksha ityat prabhu iti yat purvam drishtam anyudyan priksheta narsheha Sa esha lokha vikhyata Prikshi iti yat prabhu Purvam drishtam anudyayan Pariksheta narshiha Sa esha loke vikhyah Parikshi iti yat prabhu Purvam drishtam anudyayan Pariksheta narisheha. Translation, read it all together. By his son, who become famous in the world as Parikshit, examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in a search after that personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. You read the purports?
Yes.
Okay.
Maharaj
Go back and forth.
fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord even in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation on the Lord was constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parikshit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord, and therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was always engaged in devotional service of the Lord by remembrance.
Sure, go ahead.
Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord like Maharaj Parikshit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikshit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother. But even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govind. By constantly visiting this neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipable deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression which was developed later into regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it's temporary like others.
Jai. Om Tat Sat. Jai. So today's class, I thought what to discuss. And the topic, you can write it down if you like, is absorption in Krishna to his holy name, Kirtan and Smaranam. Now, the question is, I'll repeat again, the absorption of Krishna through his holy name, Kirtan and Smaranam. So, how does this connect to what we just discussed? And more importantly, we'll take a quick vote. So I'd like your audience participation here. Now, I'll ask you, what is more powerful? What do I mean by what is more powerful? What is more beneficial to us? So you can raise your hand. You only get one vote. You can put your hand up if you think Kirtan is more important or Smaranam. So how many people think that Kirtan is more important? You can raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay?
More important than?
More important than Smaranam, remembering Krishna. Does that change the vote? Yeah, same? Still 3 people? Okay, how many people think that Smaranam is more important? Okay, so the majority think that Smaranam is important, about 8 or 9. Okay. All right, so we'll get into that answer in a moment. So the theme of this purport that we just read, 1 to 30, is that Parikshit Maharaj became famous as Parikshit because he was an examiner, okay, searching for the Lord whom he saw before birth. And purport emphasizes the importance of the impression of Krishna at a very early age. And when that happens, then that basically serves us lifelong in terms of smaranam, remembrance. And the key point is that if we see or remember Krishna's form created by this powerful absorption that Maharaj Parikshit had in the womb, in this age of Kali Yuga, then through the practical process. So smaranam is more with the use of the mind, whereas the more practical process is using the mind, word, and tongue through kirtanam, Krishna's holy name, that will naturally lead us back to smaranam. So it's a cycle like that. All right, now in the earlier verse that you read maybe a day or two ago, in the 7th verse of this chapter, the word vira comes up. Does anybody remember what the word vira means? Veer, like you remember? Fighter, right, thank you. So vira means one who is a great fighter, okay? Like that. That's one of the qualities mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, vira. So why is this important? Is because we know that Maharaj Parikshit, just to give a quick background, I know you've been focusing on this chapter for a while, but because he was a vira, he was able to bear this unbearable heat of the Brahmastra that was sent by Ashwatthama. So this heat, not to mention the fact that he's protected by Vishnu, but the heat of Brahmastra was so unbearable that an ordinary person like us could not bear that. Because he was a vira, he could bear this unbearable heat. And similarly, because of that, we have the Nirjala Pandavikashi coming up in a few days, but he was able to do that for 7 continuous days and nights, okay? Imagine someone who can do that for 7 days and nights. If you die, but he was able to do that. And yet, beyond that, he was able to maintain complete focus on Bhagavatam and answer very deep questions. Okay? He did not sleep, he did not take even a drop of water, and he did not eat anything, but his focus was completely on the Bhagavatam. That's a vira. That's the definition of a vira. So therefore, the fact that he was thirsty in the jungle when he went to the ashram of Shamika Rishi is just a minor point. Okay? Because how can he be thirsty and then go for a complete fast for 7 days? So the fact that he was so-called thirsty was just to create the environment for us that we could hear the Bhagavatam. Is that okay then? So these things are superficial, these things are external, like that. So sometimes when you do the Bhagavatam, there's an external explanation and there's an internal explanation like that. Okay? And we go for, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we keep both in hand. And then verse 27 was that he was cursed, okay, by this young sage, like that, Shringi. But this curse, as we understand, could have been easily overturned, right? In fact, he could have killed this young sage, but he did not want to do that because he was a visionary. A Vira is also visionary, like Shukracharya. Shukracharya is described in the 10th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, is that he's Ushana. Ushana means one who can see very far ahead. And similarly, Maharaj Parikshit, because he's a dynasty, of the great dynasty coming from King Yayati, he is can see very far ahead. All these people can see very far ahead, just like his grandfathers and so forth. That's why. Okay, so once again, what is the meaning of Parikshit? Anyone can say? Examiner, right, one who takes a test. And what was he testing? What was he looking? Yes, he was trying to see if there's anyone else that can be as the same as the one I saw in the womb of my mother Uttara. Now, if you see the Lord in the womb, that impression we get from this purport remains very strong, right? Because in the womb, the baby is suffering. We read this in the third part, in the last part of the third canto. In fact, you'll come to that. I'm sure you've gone that already, between the discussion of Kapil Dev and his mother Devahuti. So he's testing, and it so happens that because he happened to be a devotee of the Lord, that he could get this darshan of the Lord. Okay? So when we read the third part of the canto, the Bhagavatam, the last part of that canto, we come to believe that every child is praying in the womb. That might be true, okay? That when I come out, I'll become your devotee, okay? I think it's in the 31st chapter of the third canto. But there's only a very few small number of people that actually get the darshan of the Lord. We don't actually get the darshan of the Lord, okay? We don't get that. It happens to very, very few souls. That's according to the Acharyas. So the thought that it happens to everyone is actually not true, okay? It's not correct. So when Parikshit Maharaj saw the Lord, he actually even had the darshan of the Lord before birth, okay? And therefore he's considered very, very, very fortunate. And even after he's born, although he did not get the opportunity to see the Lord, okay, he did not actually see the Lord face to face, except for the form of the Archavigraha deity, we understand that from Radha Govinda deities of Srila Prabhupada, that Parikshit Maharaj did the same. He also had deities. So therefore, when we read Prabhupada's purports, we can see that he was also a very great soul. Just like Parikshit Maharaj had deities in his childhood, Srila Prabhupada also had his Radha Govinda deities in his childhood. And that's called smaranam. So when we think of the deities and worship them, we do start with smaranam. Now, is there an example, another very famous example of smaranam in the Srimad Bhagavatam? A very, very famous example. Yes, Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj is probably the most famous example of smaranam, okay? Like that. And what is he famous for? He's famous for many things. But did you know that he's famous for the longest pregnancy? Right? Because at the time that his mother, Kayadu, and Hiranyakashipu had union, this was before the time that Hiranyakashipu went to Mandara mountain to do his tapasya. How many years did he do it for? He did it for 100 demigod years, okay, celestial years. So if you do a quick calculation, that's equal to 60,000 earth years. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj was in the womb of his mother for 60,000 years. Okay, it pales in comparison to that of Sukadeva Swami. It is said, according to Charis, he was in his womb for about 16 years, although some people say 14 years, but 14 to 16 years, like that. Okay, so Prahlad Maharaj got the darshan of the teachings of Narad Muni for 60,000 years, like that, and therefore he became such a great soul, like that. And that's why the biggest part of the canto of the entire Bhagavatam is given to him. Okay, because of that, he survived that pregnancy, like that. Okay, now. And therefore he says many, many things. He says, Kumara Acharya, Kumara Pragnat Acharya, that is that we should start this Krishna consciousness at a very early age. Kumar technically means from the ages of 0 to 5, right? And then there's Pagant, and then there's Kishora, like that. Okay, then Yovanam, 16 and over, like that. So these are stages that we all go through. So he says that at the very tender age of 0 to 5, one should start engaging in Bhagavad Dharma. Okay? Dharma Bhagavat, he says, Prigno. So once again, my dear friends, it goes back that the impressions in the womb are very important. And if some of you are planning to become into the Grest Ashram, then that is important, that with your partner, you make that very sure that your offspring, right from the very beginning of conception, are Krishna conscious. That's the practical point that we're all taking with us this time. So this case of Krishna, okay, is very special. So just hold that idea in your head. I didn't say Vishnu or other forms of Krishna. This case of Krishna is very special according to Acharyas. What do I mean by that? Is that there's a difference we know that there is not a difference, but at the same time, there is a difference between Krishna and his subsequent avatars. Okay, Etechasha Krishna Pamsa, like that. Okay, Etechasha Krishna Pamsa. That is that Krishna is the avatar of all the other avatars. Okay, and when Krishna comes, he does come in form, and Lord Rama comes, he comes in beautiful form. Hiranyakashipu, he comes in beautiful form. Narayan comes, but there is a difference, and that unlike Rama and Nrsingadev, when a demon sees them, okay, they do not necessarily get a good impression. Okay? So if you happen to become in one lifetime coming as Ravana, and you see Lord Ramachandra, and you see Lord Krishna, who will you choose if you had a choice? Krishna. Why?
All attractive.
He's all attractive. Good, wonderful. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll start building up this mystery, okay? The story. So what is the meaning of this? Let's go what the acharyas say. And I wrote these notes because I didn't get a chance to prepare the class. I just wrote them down, and that's why I'm reading off them. So please forgive me. So the demons see that Rama and Nrsimhadev, for example, they think of them as a very great opponent. That person is my enemy. And therefore, do not think of that person as something as greater than an enemy. They think that, oh, he's superhuman. He's like Superman, like that. Or he's like a super lion, like that, okay? Or he's Vishnu. But their conception of Vishnu is not like our Vishnu, right? We understand that in the early part of the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, where chapters 1 to 3, there is a process from Kirtanam Smaranam, then the Panch Upasanas. The Panch Upasanas basically means that we go from a gradual process of worship, from very basic worship to the worship of the Supreme Personality Godhead, Vishnu. That's mentioned in 2.2 of the Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, like that. And then it goes on to say that in the third chapter, 2, 3, and onwards, then we start becoming more aware of who is Vishnu. Okay? So there's a process like that, and all of us have gone through that process at one lifetime or another. We did not come to Krishna consciousness because unless we got the mercy of the Supreme Lord or a devotee, we had to go to these processes of purification called upasanas. And this panch upasanas basically mean that we worship fire, we worship air, we worship the demigods, we worship Lord Shiva, who's the embodiment of all the living beings, and then finally worship the impersonal form of Vishnu. Okay? Not the personal form, the impersonal form. That is, the God is everywhere, like that. Okay? He's in the mountains, he's in the lakes, but you cannot see him in the temple as an Archa Vigraha. So that's how these demons, Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, saw Vishnu like that, okay? And the thing is that they did not always remember the Supreme Lord. So even though they saw the Lord, even though they did not know that he's Supreme Lord, it did not influence Ravana nor Hiranyakashipu to become a devotee, okay? Or even remember of them. On the converse, Krishna, when he comes, the demons, yes, they do not drop bhakti, right? We don't see Kamsa offering arati, offering bhoga. He doesn't do that, okay? Let alone, go against the gopis or Vrindavan. He doesn't drop bhakti. But the specialty of Krishna is that the demons, once they see Krishna, they can never forget him. Okay? They can never forget him. His form and his nam. They can never forget his form and nam. Okay? If you read the life story of Kamsa, he was always, once he saw Krishna, he always thought of him, especially when Krishna came to Mathura. His fear of him greatly enhanced, but his smaranam also greatly enhanced, and his kirtanam also enhanced. He was always on his tongue. He had the name of Krishna, okay? Like that. He's this Krishna. When he's going to come kill me? Is he behind the corner? Is he in his mirror? Is he behind this goat? Is he in this food that I'm eating? Is he in the clothes that, my minister has given me? He's very suspicious of this so-called personality of Krishna. So he's always thinking and chanting Krishna's name. So Kamsa was always absorbed in that, even though his absorption was that of not of bhakti, but of hatred and fear. Okay? Like that. But 24/7, he was more thinking of Krishna than you or I, certainly myself, okay? Maybe, I'm sure you people are always thinking of Krishna, but I'm not, okay? So he was doing Krishna Smaranam and Krishna Kirtanam, like that, okay? Similarly, another person, related to him was Shishupal. Shishupal was also like that. He said, oh, this Krishna is my relative, you know? He's a rascal, he's a cheater, right? I have to expose him in the sacrifice, in the Rajasuya sacrifice. I have to expose who he really is. So Shishupal was also thinking of Krishna like that, just like Kamsa. So although these two people hated, like anything, they hated Krishna more than we can ever hate him. They hated him like anything, but they were completely absorbed 24/7 in thinking of him and uttering his name. Is that okay so far? All right. But again, that was not the case of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu. Nor were they absorbed 24/7, nor did they utter the names of Rama or Nrsingadev. So why do some demons, like we understand that, you know, like for example, Shishupal, we don't talk about Kamsa, but Ravana, you know, like Kumbhakaran, and then so forth, you know, Dantavakra, like that. These are all reincarnated from Jaya and Vijay. Okay, so why did these demons that were born 3 times became absorbed in Krishna, but not in Rama and Nrsingadev? We know that Ravana, right, he comes back again, okay, as Hiranyakashipu, or Hiranyakashipu comes back as Ravana, and then Ravana comes back as Shishupal, like that, okay? That's the so-called evolution, you know, the theory of evolution according to the Bhagavatam, like that. So the answer is, as Prabhu said, Krishna is most attractive, okay? Krishna is most attractive than his other forms. Even though Kamsa and Shishupal hated Krishna, they became attracted to Krishna due to his beautiful form and his beautiful name. Now we just read, I think in last class or the class before, the darshan of Krishna, how beautiful he looked, you know, like he had his club, his lips were red like bimba, he was wearing bracelets, ankle bracelets, he was adorned with so much jewelry, he had a crown, you know, he had such a beautiful face, his lotus-like eyes, like that. You know, the attractive form of Krishna is well described in this chapter. And so much so that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that even in the womb, he's written a bhajan, that even in the womb, that, you know, if I get the darshan of Krishna, please, I don't want to forget him, like that, okay? But again, according to Acharyas, that darshan is not given to any regular personality. It is given to already someone who is a pure devotee, okay? And that was Prahlad Maharaj, or that was Parikshit Maharaj, okay? Like that. Kamsa and Shishupal became purified through Krishna's form and name, and that was not through their own doing. And it is said that because of this purification, even though they had hatred against Krishna, that they kept on chanting. So this is similar to what's called namaprad. That is, if you are chanting the holy name, but your mind is elsewhere, there's many types of namaprad, but the biggest one is called pramad, that is inattention. And because of inattention, that leads to all other 10 offenses. That's mentioned in the Harinam Chintamani by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He makes that very clear. So in fact, he puts that last offense as one of the, I think, 7th or 8th offense, and the last offense, that we should not maintain material attachments, as the 11th offense, according to the Harinam Chintamani. But that's another point of discussion. The point is that when you do namaprad, the cure for that, the basic cure is to keep on chanting. Okay? You do not stop chanting, you keep on chanting, taking the medicine like that. And similarly, that's what Kamsa and Shishupal did. And they became, you know, fixed on the absorption of the Lord. So what is the final result? Do you want to hear the final result of Kamsa? So this is what happened to them. Of course, there is some fruit derived from this discussion. According to Nectar Devotion, there are 5 special qualities of Vishnu versus that of Shiva, right? We understand that Krishna has 64 transcendental qualities, okay? Brahmaji has up to 50 transcendental qualities, okay? Similarly, the Devatas and lower forms like ourselves can get a part of those 50 qualities. We cannot achieve the degree to which the Devatas can, and certainly not to the full extent of Brahma, but we can achieve a partial of that. So when we do the math, Brahma can get a score of 78% on a test, okay? And then Shiva can get 55 out of 64. That's about, 84%? Okay, Vishnu or even Ramachandra can get 60 out of 64. They can get about 90 plus, okay? But only Balaram and Krishna can get 64 out of 64, okay? Balaram has 64 qualities, Krishna has 64 qualities, no difference. Is that okay? So going back to the point that these special qualities of Vishnu has extra 5 qualities, okay? Shiva has 55 out of the 64, and Vishnu has 60 out of these 64. See, Nectar 5. What are these qualities? You can go to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Nectar Devotion and get these qualities. So the key of these 5 qualities that Vishnu has, one of them is that the destination of whomever he kills, that destination is always good. Okay? They do not go to hell. They go to something, as like for example, Shiva tells Parvati in that famous verse in Canto 6:17, Swarga Apavarga, like that. They go to higher destinations, So they went to higher destination. That is the mercy of Vishnu. Now, what is that destination? Whether it is the Vaikuntha planets or whether it is like Brahmalok, no, certainly beyond the material world. But they go to higher destination, or Swargalok, it's possible, but it's actually not mentioned. When you read it, it's actually not mentioned in the Nectar Devotion. But one thing is they definitely do not go down. They always go up like that. So when Nrsimhadev killed Hiranyakashipu, he was born as Ravana. And I may say, well, that's not such a good thing. He was born Ravana. But if you look at Ravana's life, he had all wealth. Like right that he was taking gold from Brazil and from bringing it back all to Lanka. That's mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in his purports, right? He had a tunnel going through the earth all the way from Lanka to Brazil, like that, okay? And therefore, Srila Prabhupada writes that nowadays, although they haven't said it, we think it's South Africa, but Brazil has a lot of gold, okay? It has a lot of gold, probably doesn't know that, being underneath the Amazon, okay? But they might start digging under the Amazon, they might find gold like that. And then he came as Ravana, so he's very powerful, very wealthy, very opulent. And then Lord Ramachandra killed Ravana, then Ravana was born as Shishupal. And Shishupal was also a very great king. He enjoyed like anything, okay? We don't read much about him, but he enjoyed like anything. So therefore, they got a better life. They got some material benefits. But either of them went to hell. But when he killed Shishupal, what happened? A, he did not go to hell. B, is that he also did not return, right? Shishupal did not return. Where did Shishupal go? He went back upstairs. He went back up to the spiritual world. Okay? He went back up to the spiritual world as Jaya. Jaya and, of course, Dantavakra as Vijaya. Because he always thought of Krishna and never, even though in his hatred, and therefore he got the perfect result. Another very common example is Putana. Right? Putana came as a gopi nurse. Okay, we call him a gopi nurse. She came dressed as a gopi, and she wanted to nurse Krishna. But of course, she was hateful of Krishna, like anything. She wanted to kill Krishna. Well, what did she get? She became a datari. She became a nurse, right in Rajdam, up in the spiritual world. So that's the extent of the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna that other forms cannot give. Nor Lord Ramachandra, Vishnu, Narayana, or other forms Nrsimhadev cannot bestow upon their demon-like devotee. Is that okay so far? Okay. So let's come back to the point of smaranam and kirtanam. So from this we understand that these so-called demons, or these demons I shouldn't say so-called, they are demons, okay? The smaranam is very, very, very beneficial, as you all said, voted for Jivatma. Of course, remembering any form of the Lord is very wonderful. Prahlad Maharaj was focusing on Vishnu. He was meditating on Vishnu. But, my dear friends, it is much, much easier to meditate on Krishna. Because when we think of Vishnu, right, we think of Vishnu in the form of, more like a kingly form. Whereas when we read the Krishna book, we think of Krishna, he might be just around the corner. He's upstairs in the altar, but tomorrow he might be running around somewhere in the temple, like Jagannath. Jagannath Rath Yatra is coming up. He might be getting dressed as Jagannath. In a week, we won't see him. He'll be giving his darshan 2 weeks from now, like that, on Young Street, like that. So Krishna is more playful. He has more variety. He has more ras, like that, okay, than Vishnu. Vishnu is, of course, he has that, but it's easier to meditate on Krishna because of his all-attractive form, his akarshana, like that. That's why he's known as Krishna. And that's why when we do the Srimad Bhagavatam in Kali Yuga, the important thing in Bhagavatam is that we do smaranam for the aspect of kirtanam. That's the Yuga Dharma of this age. Smaranam leads to kirtanam. When you read the Bhagavatam, that is the form of kirtanam. Kirtanam means whenever we glorify the Supreme Lord, through class, through our japa, loud or soft japa, like that, or especially when you go out on the streets, sankirtan, That is all called kirtanam. Kirtanam means to glorify the Lord. And the last part of this, we have to finish soon. The last part is that the deity form versus Krishna's form. Now, even though the Lord is not present before us personally, we do have his Archavigar form, like that. We have him upstairs. The other way to remember Krishna's name is through his holy name. Okay? And that is the yoga dharma of his name. And now, in our Kali Yuga, we have the extra benediction that not only chanting Krishna's name, but by chanting the name of Krishna, we understand that all the names of Krishna are invested in that, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know, he says that in the second verse of the Shikshastakam. But if you want proof of that, where's the proof? In the Puranas, it is said that when we chant 1,000 names of Vishnu, what is the benefit that we get? What is it equal to?
3 names of Rama.
Yes. It's actually equal to 1 name of Rama, and 1 name of Ram, or 3 names of Rama is equal to? 1 of Krishna. That's right. That's exactly right. So according to Brahma Vaivarta Purana, 3 names of Rama are equal to 1 name of Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna is equal to 3,000 names of Vishnu. So you have a choice. When you do the Vishnu Sahasranam, what do? Do you spend an hour chanting the Vishnu Sahasranam or Vishnu's whole names? Or chant Krishna? You know, I mean, it's so easy, so attractive, so easy, right? And Jiva Goswami says it's so easy, right? Because Krishna consciousness seems hard, but if you get into it deeper, it becomes very easy, depending on your degree of surrender, and depending on degree of sincerity, and depending on your degree of the mercy of the Lord, your Guru, and all your, mentors like that, your inspirers. So far, earlier we said that Krishna Smaranam is important. And why not just Krishna Smaranam? Is because both go hand in hand, okay? That is, Kirtanam is powerful, and Smaranam is powerful, both go together. And Sanatana Goswami says that we cannot separate these things from each other. Just like we cannot separate milk from water, right? Unless you're a Hamsa, you cannot do that. It's not possible to do that. So similarly, Smaranam and Kirtanam go hand in hand. But there's a problem. The problem is with Smaranam, sometimes, like if you're a yogi or a jnani, any yogis here? I see all these people that they look like yogis, rishis, great people, right? No, we're not yogis, we're bhaktas, okay? What happens is that when you do Smaranam as a jnani, it takes a long time, right? You have to do yama, niyama, asana, we have to make a proper asana. Then we have to do pratyahara, pranams, breathing exercises, then dharana, like that, dhyana, and then we reach samadhi. So it's a long process. And when something's long, there's no guarantee that you'll get the benefit at the end. Okay? So that's a danger with smaranam as a yogi. But on the converse, if you simply chant Krishna's name, there's no preparation required, no time, place, or circumstance. Similarly, if you do that, simply by chanting Krishna's name, that is the most direct and guaranteed path to the Supreme Lord. What you'll get to the Yoga Yudra form that we listen in chapter 6, the Dhyana Yoga, you'll automatically get by just chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. That's the power of this. And therefore, in the Padma Purana, it is said that Smartayam Satatam Vishnu Smartayo Na Jatu Nasid. That is that we should always, whatever we do in Krishna consciousness, the whole purpose is to always remember Krishna and never forget him. Thank you. Vismrita. That is, we should always smaranam. Vismritam means to forget him. V means without. Like vikarma. We don't want to do vikarma. We want to do akarma. Like that. Okay. So, to end, my friends, it is said that Krishna is the origin of Vishnu and he should all be remembered and not forgotten according to the Padma Purana. And the flow chart is that when kirtanam, it helps to lead to smaranam. When you do smaranam, it helps us do kirtanam. And when we remember the Lord, then we desire to chant his name even more and more. So therefore, at the end, the more kirtanam we do, the more smaranam we do, the more smaranam we do, and the more kirtanam we do. So therefore, both answers are correct. But what age are we in? We're in age Kali. And what's the Yoga Dharma for this age? Harinam Sankirtan. So Kirtanam is more important for this age, like that. All right, so the people that put up their hands, yes, they'll get some extra prasadam or whatever you have from the Sunday feast today. Kheer, I hope there's some kheer today. All right, so with that we can close and we'll leave the last 8 minutes for question or comments or reflections or anything that you'd like to add. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Grantrashima Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhakti Academy ki jai. Hare Bol. Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
First of all, thank you very much for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna. All
The
Guru Prabhupada.
question that I had is, in between the class you were mentioning about the 5 forms, like before we reach to actually doing...
Panchapasanas?
Yes, 5
Yes.
pasanas.
Yes.
So, about the one where impersonalism is very strong, where they see like God everywhere except deities. At that time, what we should feel about them, like how we should treat them, because they are seeing at the end God everywhere, but they are not agreeing that deities are God. They are totally same. But we know now that okay, they are in the 5th stage of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we can do so that they can like directly jump to devotional service, or what should be our
So suppose tonight I know you just read Bhagavatam for the Bhadra Purnima, you've done it very nicely. So suppose I come into a temple and I say, oh, I see Krishna everywhere. Do you see him? You say, no. I said, no, I can see Vishnu everywhere. He's in the staircase, he's on the floor, he's at the reception desk, he's everywhere. So what are you going to tell me? How are you going to talk to me? Right? I see Vishnu everywhere. I see him on Young Street. I see him on Avenue Road, Roxas Road. He's everywhere. He's in the trees. He's in Ramsden Park. What are you going to tell me?
See in Bhagavad?
You can see him in Bhagavad? Yes. Yes. If he's there, why is he not in the Bhagavad? Yes. Yeah. So why is he not in his prasadam? So somehow give him a book, give him a prasadam, some way that you will not offend that personality like that. Because sometimes we challenge them and say, well, that's not correct, sometimes I've done that, when we do book distribution. They say that I know everything, I know more about Vishnu than you do. Then you start getting a little antsy, especially when it's cold outside. And what are you doing with this Bhagavad Gita? What, don't you have any work to do, don't you have a living or anything like that? They say, I know everything, Vishnu is in you, Vishnu is in me, Vishnu is in everybody, don't waste time with me. That's their mantra, okay? Like that. So yes, you can give them Bhagavatam, you can give them Prasadam, some way like that, give them the holy namesake. Oh, well, that's nice. Then if you see Vishnu everywhere, we'll have a big, big bang, festival tonight. Come tonight and you can engage in that, like that.
But then the main thing that I want to ask is how we should feel about them, because...
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that point. Yeah. Yeah, we should feel in our heart, we should feel compassionate. That they are making an attempt, but they're going the wrong direction, right? Like if suppose you're driving a bike, you're on a bike, and you go down you see a car coming down opposite to you, but you're going the right direction, but the car is coming in a one-way street. What will you do? You'll stop them somehow. Otherwise, that person will meet a serious accident, right? So we have to somehow feel compassionate for them and give them something because we don't know, maybe next time they might not get the opportunity till another lifetime. Yeah. But do it in a very nice way, Very nice way.
Thank you.
Maybe someone can add to that. That's my thought.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Actually, my question also was in a similar thought about impersonalism. So the impersonalists, they also say that the form of the Lord is Maya as well.
Yes.
Because the Supreme Brahman is present inside, and that's what we're looking at, and not the form of the Lord.
Yes.
And that's why they call Mayavadis, because they go to such an extent that Maya is everything is Maya in the end.
Yes.
So, how does our kind of opinion change in terms of an Archavigraha or the deity form? Do we look at the deity as the Lord has taken this material form to come in front of me so that I can serve him? Or should we just look at it as a transcendental form? Or how should we look at the deities, in terms of our perspective?
Okay, very nice. So, I can give an answer, but if you like an expert answer, Banu Maharaj, he's the authority on deity worship. And he gives a series of lectures on YouTube about that whole aspect that you just asked, Prabhu, but how one should view the Archa Vigraha. So yes, Krishna and the deity form is so-called material, right? And the Bhagavatam, this lists that there are 8 types of, can be done in 8 forms, in forms of painting, in the forms of mind, in the forms of brass, marble, stone, like that. There's like 5, 6 forms like that. But as devotees, we should see that this is the mercy of Krishna. Krishna has come in the mercy form. The Acharya is actually a mercy form for us to be able to see him. Because we cannot see Krishna, even though we might see Krishna when we meditate, we can only see him in the form that we have seen him before, as a mercy form, as a deity form. We've seen him in the picture, we've seen him in a temple, we see him in the altar, we see him in our house as Ishtadev. So that's the mercy form. And if we think of that, when you meditate on the form, then gradually Krishna makes us eligible to accept that is non-different from Krishna being right there and there with the Radharani. So slowly that maturity happens, right? Like, for example, if I give you some medicine and you might not have faith in the medicine, you might have faith in me, or vice versa. You might have faith in your medicine but not in the doctor. But until you don't see results, like you start seeing that, oh, I'm having good association, my job is improving, my book score is increasing. Sometimes people use that as they see that my bhakti is, thermometer is going up, right? Those things like that. I'm easier to wake up for Mangalarti. Let's say that's a better one, okay? I'm not hoarding so much prasadam like that. So I'm thinking of Krishna more. Those are parameters by which we can see that, okay, we're advancing to see that Krishna on the altar is Krishna as it is. And that's why it is so important that we find a guru, and a guru teaches us deity worship. Deity worship is part of this system, okay? Deity worship, this Panchatarika Vidhi, is very important for us because we cannot go directly to Bhagavad Vidhi. Bhagavad Vidhi is chanting the holy names. Panchatarika Vidhi is deity worship. So deity worship is integral to our Gaudiya Sampradaya. It's very important. So we all should, at some point in time, go for second initiation and do deity worship. And that's when we'll see Krishna more and more, right? He's right there. We invest the deity, feed the deity on time. Oh, his mukut is off, his flute is off like that. That's Krishna right there. He can do it himself, but he's waiting for you to help him. Is that okay, Prabhu? Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes, we'll take one more, Prabhu. One more, Prabhu.
It's not a very philosophical, very intellectual question. You just mentioned how we measure, some devotees that measure their advancement is like, you mentioned one point of hoarding prasadam. So I was just wondering.
That just came off the tongue.
Yeah. So I see sometimes in the ashram also, sometimes they hoard some prasadam, keep something if they like it.
Oh, this is getting a little warm.
So is there any reason, what is it, underlying reason why they're doing it, and is it wrong or is it okay? I just want to understand what is your point on that.
I used to do that too. So halva was, back in the days, halva was very opulent. Back in the 80s, it used to be very opulent in Govindas. And that time they had many types of halva: blueberry, apple halva, pineapple, plum halva, peach halva, every day. Okay, I used to take a lot of that. But at that time, I was just a starter. I was just a starter in Krishna consciousness, and through having prasadam, I did not know about it. I think I probably did advance. Okay, so that's one aspect. Having more prasadam will advance you because it's not different from Krishna's form. Okay, even though whether you know it or not, it still has an effect. Whether you know the medicine is working or not working, it'll have an effect, okay, according to the doctor. That's point number one. The second point is that as you advance in Krishna consciousness, then, according to the nectar of instruction, Rupa Goswami says, Atyahara priyasascha prajalpanyam agraha. That's when you do atyahara, hoard more things. Prabhupada makes a nice example of a bird. When a bird sees a whole sack of seeds on the ground, only take enough for its day-to-day survival. But as human beings, we take, halva, gulab jamuns, 10 sabjis like that, because it is our nature like that. So as we advance, then we should advance another parameter is that we start being more mindful that this prasadam is something very valuable and less as that of a form of food. When you think of it as food, then we hoard it. When you don't think of it as food, then we respect it and only take a certain portion that's necessary for us. Is that okay? Yeah. And I think Swami Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj gives a very nice example. He gives the aspect that we should only take enough to fill half our belly with food, the other half air, and the other half some liquid for proper digestion, like that. Yes. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay. I think we should, any from the mothers? It's Father's Day today, by the way, but we can always take a mother's. Well, happy Father's Day to all prospective fathers. We'll take one short one. Yes.
I have the same question that Rahul, Prabhu, and Shanti asked. I want to just ask another follow-up question. That we have heard if you want to become a devotee of Lord Krishna, and you are not there are all these 5 upasanas, and sometimes they mention you start worshipping Lord Shiva also. He gives you the benediction.
Yes.
So is that true?
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. That's mentioned in actually. If you read the Bhagavatam, it's mentioned many times in Canto 5 and also in Canto 4 when you read about the glories of Lord Shiva when Sati was killed. Actually, she was killed by Daksha. She was killed because of that reason. Shiva is very great because he is completely fixed on teaching the Bhagavatam to Narada Muni, and Kuvera came to that up on Mount Kailas. Kuvera, Narada Muni came, 4 Kumars came. He was totally fixed in Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. He didn't this way. So he's a pure devotee. Yes, but when we come to Shiv Bhagwan, if we desire that Shivji, please make him pure devotee of Krishna or Ramachandra, he will do that because on his name is Rama Rama Rameti, like that. He is always chanting the name of Krishna and Lord Ramachandra. And also on his head is the crescent moon, right? Now there's many stories why he has a crescent moon on his head, right? Like the moon was cursed by his father-in-law Daksha. Another time when Ganesh fell off his mouse carrier, then Chandra Dev was right there and he started laughing at him, So Ganesh cursed him, that you will go to these pakshas, like that. But the more important reason is that Radharani's left foot, her left heel has the moon, okay? Radharani has 19 marks, I think 11 on her left foot and 9 or 8 on her right. But the main point is on her left heel, she has a moon crescent. Therefore, Lord Shiva keeps this to remind himself of Radharani. So therefore, yes, if you pray to Shiva Bhagwan, he will take you to Radha Krishna, for sure. Yeah, he will not stop there. But unfortunately, we have stopped there in previous lifetimes. You only pray to Shiva to give us, other things like a good wife, like that. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for it. Mancha Kalpatra Vishya Kripasana.